In this short video, I'd like to introduce you to the flipped classroom. This is the only way you should be doing tech training from now on. If you're not, you're throwing away money and you're not leveraging the educational possibilities for your people. There's a lot of drawbacks to the traditional classroom style one-time shot education, and this takes care of those significantly. I specifically use it for Agile transformations, but I can see it being used for numerous other ways. If you are someone who provides training and you want to talk with me about how I can help you flip your classroom, I'd be happy to work with you on doing that. But let's get diving into flipping the classroom in an Agile transformation. So the traditional classroom looks something like this. You walk into the classroom. Imagine yourself in elementary school or in middle school. You're going to algebra class, and they're doing the quadratic equation. There's the professor, teacher, whoever, standing in front of the classroom and teaching the quadratic equation 6 periods a day, same lecture over and over. You sit there, you scribble notes as fast as you can, and you try and absorb any of it that you can in the classroom, because you know when you get home, you're going to be this poor little kid on the right that's trying to figure out what was it that she said, he said in the class, or what were they talking about? Was it A plus B, or is it inside, outside? How does it work? And if your notes weren't perfect, maybe you were lucky enough to have a friend who took better notes or somebody who took the class before and understood it. But you did your homework, did the best you could, hoped you got it right, knew you didn't get some of it right, got back to school the next day, handed in your papers the first thing in class, didn't get feedback on it, and the teacher moved on to the next part of the next element of quadratic equations. A couple days later, you got your assignment back, but the teacher was 3 lessons down the road, and you had no idea how to go back and figure it out. We do the same exact thing in tech training. We'll send people away to a 3 or 4 day workshop to learn a new language, a new approach. They'll learn Scrum in 3 days. They'll learn to be a certified product owner in a couple of days. They'll learn whatever it is. We send them away to a class. They take the class. They come back and they're supposed to be able to implement it based on what they learned in the class. It is no different than when you were in elementary school. It sucked then, it sucks now. So let's change that. There have been a lot of advancements in educational pedagogy, that is the study of teaching, and methods for teaching. And this is one of the most amazing things that has come out. It is called the flipped classroom. And the flipped classroom works something like this. Before class starts, you receive an assignment. The assignment is to watch some videos. Those videos have content in them. The same content that that teacher was lecturing for 6 times a day, that teacher now has to lecture once, really well, into a video. They post that video on YouTube or some other hosting service, and you then go watch that video. Now, this is not just a video learning class. That is part of the whole system, but it is not complete. By itself, that's insufficient to help you really understand how to apply these more complicated things. So you would be sent a link to some videos on Agile, in my case. You'd learn about some of the principles, the practices, the techniques, some of the tools. What does it look like? What does the culture need to be? What is the leadership approach? A bunch of different things. You'd receive these videos and you'd be watching them. You'd be taking notes on your own time, on company time, however that you work that out with your employee-employer relationship. But you'd watch these videos. Then you'd get a telephone text. You'd watch the videos, and then you would get to class, and you would spend your time working on exercises that would have been in the normal class, but you've got more time for them. Not only exercises, but you spend actually most of your time working on application as well. So how does this fit in the real world? Because your instructor doesn't have to spend all that time in content delivery, they're able to spend the time helping you grasp and cement the ideas with exercises and apply to your specific situation. The thing that we all wish we could spend more time in class doing, figuring out how it works in the real world, we get to spend that way in a flipped classroom. Going forward, you get coaching, one-on-one or group coaching with folks to apply this material, apply it. Then you also have continued access to that same online learning. So what you didn't get the first time around, you have an opportunity to go back and re-study and re-get the second or third time around. Let's talk about this a little bit more. Oh, and then obviously from your coaching, you may learn something that you get that drives you to go watch one of the videos, or vice versa. You may see a video that drives you back to talking to a coach and going, hey, what did that mean? So this approach allows you to have a continued ongoing classroom environment, but without having to be in a quote-unquote classroom. Here's how time is spent in these two different worlds. In the traditional classroom, you spend most of the time on lecture. There's a boatload of content. I mean, nobody likes to do lecture, but one way or another, there has to be content delivery. And learning to become agile, it takes a lot of understanding of new ideas. So there's a lot of lecture. That's it. That's all there is to it. We as agile coaches and trainers try and come up with new ways of doing that. There's constructivist models for providing that, but it still is lecture conveying information from me to you. Then there's a bunch of time spent on exercise, and then there's time spent on application. So in the left-hand side, you see lecture, exercises, and a little bit on application. In the flipped classroom, it's the opposite of that. Most of your time is spent on application. The same amount of time is spent on exercises. We don't add extra exercises, unless maybe you need something, but only for application. And the bottom there, that time is spent on clarification of things maybe you didn't understand from the videos. But in the first one, you don't even get to clarification because your time is spent lecture, exercise, application. That's it. You don't have enough time to even form your questions in that kind of traditional one-time, 2-3 day classroom. The flipped classroom allows you a significantly more laid back schedule and more time for digging in deeper and having a deeper level of learning and understanding and application. There's something called Zygorski's Zone of Proximal Development. We call it the ZPD, Zone of Proximal Development. This is the idea that there's these 3 rings, and if you look on the picture there on the right, Zone 1 is stuff that the learner can do. Stuff you're already capable of doing. Think about playing the piano. If you know how to play chopsticks on the piano, that's you. You're playing chopsticks. Dun, 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 whatever, however that goes. In Zone 2, it's stuff the learner can do with guidance. If you can play chopsticks, a piano teacher can probably teach you how to play Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star with a little bit of help, right? You'll be okay. Zone 3 is things that the learner can't do right now. It's not the things that the learner has no ability or possibility of doing. It's just that they're beyond their zone of proximal development. See the proximity here between Zone 1 and Zone 2? That's the proximal development. You can develop into Zone 2. You can't develop into Zone 3. I can't sit down with someone who only knows how to play chopsticks and, if I was a piano teacher, and teach them to play Chopin. It's not going to happen. They may plunk out 3 or 4 notes, but they aren't going to get the purpose, the meaning, the depth, the inflection that comes with someone who knows how to play the piano. So that's the idea of these ZPD. Meet the learner where they're at. You can only learn what is in Zone 2 for you. So when you go to a class and someone teaches you everything there is to know about agility, some of that lies in the center Zone 1. You already know it. Some of that stuff lies in the Zone 2. Stuff that you don't know, but it's close enough that you can grasp it. Some of that stuff lies in Zone 3. You don't have a way of holding on to it. There's no cognitive coat hanger, for lack of a better term, to hang it on. You may be You may be hearing the information and taking notes on the information, but you have no way to understand that in the long term and actually apply it, right? What am I reading here? Flipped. The flipped allows, it's the maximum scaffolding. So it allows you to get this in your first go round, but then after a while, after you've learned stuff that's in zone 2, your zone 1 expands a little bit, and your zone 2 then expands too. And then you're able to learn a little bit more that used to be in zone 3, right? Here's the stuff right here on this edge where my cursor is, that now that's in zone 2. Now you can learn it. Now you have the cognitive coat hangers that will allow you to take those new concepts and hang them on them, right? And then once you've learned a little bit more, now what's out here in this part of zone 3 that you know, before you couldn't handle that at all, now it grows a little bit more and you can handle that. Now your zone 1 is a lot bigger, stuff that you know. Zone 2 is farther out into what used to be zone 3, and yet there's still some things that are in zone 3. So by having this online video library available to you, it allows you to take your time and actually learn over time and repeat to remember, right? We need to go back to things and relearn them, re-listen to them. So you may have watched the videos before class, you came to class, you asked the questions that you had here in your zone 2. Those are the questions you can ask. You don't even know the questions to ask out here. These are the questions you asked during class, and you got some answers to those, and you expanded a little bit. But then you go back and you rewatch the videos, and you go, oh, I understand a little bit more, and now you have more hooks to put that on. See how that works? You're able to continue your learning over time. A little comparison of the traditional versus the flipped long-term understanding. The traditional is a one-time class, where the flipped classroom has that, just I was talking about, that repeated ongoing learning that happens. In a traditional classroom, really most of the time and energy and effort is focused around content delivery. And in a flipped classroom, it's really focused on learner development. We want to develop the learner and help them grow wherever they're at, which talks about in-class scaffolding versus video support and scaffolding. Scaffolding is the ability of the instructor to speak to people who are at different levels. Some people really get things quickly because they've had experience or they understand that particular topic, and so they've got it. And other people, it takes them longer. The people who it takes longer, the educational term for helping them do things is scaffolding. So in a flipped classroom, you're actually able to scaffold more because A, they've had the videos to watch already, and so they'll come going, I don't understand X, Y, or Z. And B, you have actually the peers in the classroom who have watched those videos, and now because we're spending more time on application and understanding, and that they have time to actually talk with their peers more than if you were in the traditional classroom. That's what I just said here. The teacher helps everyone versus peer support and teacher support. You're able to have not only teacher support, but peers helping you as well. In the traditional classroom, it's really looked at the instructor is the sage on the stage. I don't care how many ways you try and create a constructivist classroom where you are facilitating the learning that's happening in the room. I've been there. I know people who are experts at it, but it's still, there's a certain amount of sage on the stage where you are the person who's delivering the content and delivering the information. While the flipped classroom, the teacher's role is really more to be the guide on the side. The person that says, well, you remember watching the video, they said this, here's how that applies. And they're really more facilitating than doing the teaching per se. The teacher in the traditional classroom, when they leave, there's no more learning, right? You have your binder of information and you have maybe your peers, but that's it. With the flipped classroom, you have the video system there that's able to help you repeat, refresh, and remember those things that you got from the class, and you'll be able to recall, oh yeah, we did that exercise. I didn't understand it at the time, but now it makes sense because of my experience in rewatching this video. In the traditional world, if you have new employees, if you have new employees, you need new classes, or they just have to learn by osmosis. Osmosis doesn't work well, I'll tell you that, and new classes are expensive. In the flipped classroom model, if you retain access to the video library, then what happens is the new people go and watch the exact same videos that everyone watched, right? So they're not getting a new class with a different instructor who may be better or worse than the first instructor and may teach different things with different emphasis, and then you'll have conflicts of, well, my instructor said this, but this instructor said that. No, they get the exact same material because it's recorded, right? And then you learn from your peers and managers, what's the application look like here? Because they're doing it. So you actually get that on-the-job learning right there. So benefits from the flipped classroom. You get to maximize the time in the classroom for application and cementing it through exercise. Learning through listening is that's the least powerful method. Learning by doing and learning by asking, and application are the strongest. And scaffolding is much easier in the flipped classroom. Well, thanks for watching. If you would like to learn more about how flipping the classroom can help you with your Agile implementation, or with expansion, or with your continued growth in agility, the flipped classroom is a great way to do that, to continue your growth as an organization in Agile. Give me a call or drop me an email. Stop by my website. I'd love to hear from you, and I'll return your calls and emails as soon as I can. Looking forward to talking to you soon. All right, bye-bye.